Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about how we can take Dynamics 365 and maximize the impact of either a fresh implementation or something that's already in place, but really, getting out of the platform, getting out of the system as much as possible in any corner, so whether we're talking about sales or marketing, whether we're talking about data stewardship and ownership, whether we're talking about implementation strategies, there are a lot of things that we can talk about and a lot of things that we can dive into. So we're going to have a pretty stacked agenda today with a lot of content. So stick with me. As Sabrina already mentioned, if there are any questions, any issues as we're going forward, don't hesitate to raise your digital hand and voice up when things are coming around. If you want to dive into particulars as we move through, excuse me, all the content. So. With that, we'll jump into what we're going to cover today. So, again, thanks for being with us. We'll start things by just giving an introduction, myself, the team, and then for those that might not be familiar, we have a lot of skill sets and backgrounds and familiarity that we work with on a day-to-day basis. So I want to make sure everybody's level set in the content and some of the concepts that we'll be walking through and talking through. So we'll give those introductions and we'll give an introduction to the platform as well. Beyond that, we're going to talk about engagement. So whether we're talking about customer engagement or whether we're talking about internal user engagement, we're going to look at some of those applications and some of the tools that we have in our toolbox when we're talking about Dynamics 365. Beyond that, some implementation strategies. So once we get a good base, once we've had a little bit of time to digest, the tools of the trade and what we have at our fingertips, what's going to work best for you? We have a couple of broader buckets of how we can implement and things that we can expect when we're looking at different variables with respect to implementation. So what's going to work best for your team? What are those variables in play? And then kind of walking through and highlighting a couple of different ways and means that we can look at to get Dynamics 365 stood up. And then we'll take a look at a couple of business cases. So, once we have, that foundation, once we've talked about implementation, really getting the gears turning, how is this applied to other customers, or how is this applied to other situations or circumstances? And then we'll close with additional questions if we've got the time. So I will say it again, feel free, please raise your hand, ask questions as we're moving forward, and we can address them as they come through. So. As far as intros, my name is Adam Hallbeck. I'm a senior consultant here at Stone Ridge Software, particularly in the Dynamics 365 for customer engagement. So for those on the line that have been with it for a while, CRM. So I'm in our CRM practice. But just a couple of highlights, I guess. Work with a great team. We're growing. It's awesome. It's fun. And, really looking forward to what's around the bend for the new initiatives and strategies we have as a team, as well as working with my current customers. So a couple of touch points for me. My email, adamh@stoneridgesoftware.com. You can go read my bio. I hope it's not too self-aggrandizing, but we have some blurbs on our team over on the website, and then feel free to connect. Predominantly on LinkedIn and Twitter, I do have a Dynamics 365 UG profile and presence as well. But would love to connect. Would love to network a bit and reach out anytime. But the team as a whole, who is Stone Ridge Software? So when we're talking about the team mentality and who I get to work with, I mentioned the highlight is being with my team, working with my team. We have a lot of accolades and a lot of things to be proud of. But just a couple of the things I did want to throw out there. Best places to work, continually named regionally. So looking at the Star Tribune Top 150, Minnesota Business Mag, best places to work in a few publications around or bodies, organizations, entities around the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. We operate between Barnesville, Fargo, and Minneapolis. So little northern presence as well as down here in the cities. But we are in the mix every year for best places to work. It really is a special team. In terms of business and looking at those value-added resellers, looking at those VARs. Accounting today, top of our stars, Bob Scott's, and in terms of growth, performance, the Inc. 5000, fastest growing firms, and we were a part of Microsoft Dynamics Inner Circle for 2018, 2019. So a lot of accolades, a lot of things to be really proud of, but all this is great. I would say it's a byproduct. So really what we're focused on are our core values and how we operate as a unit, how we operate as a practice, how we operate as a team on the whole. So we're talking about integrity, technical excellence, tenacity, being client-centric all the time, and enjoying our work. So when we focus on those values, when we're all rowing in the right direction together, and everything is built on this sort of foundation, those accolades, those special things, they come through. So just wanted to give a highlight of the team, how we operate, what we focus on, and what you can expect with working with a Stone Ridge software consultant or SME or anybody across the board, really. So to kick things off and to continue along with a more introductory level type of conversation, we're going to give a quick breakdown of Dynamics 365, or formerly known as CRM. So just to get everybody on a good level base. When we're thinking about the capabilities of the system, when we're thinking about sales, marketing, service, field service project, all these different pieces and applications of using Dynamics 365 for customer engagement, we have to understand first, what is our current state? Are you using the system at all in the first place? B, is this a platform? Is this a technology that you've been looking at for some time? But all in all, it's about understanding yourself. It's about understanding the people on your team, the resources that you have, your goals and your vision. So, is your sales pipeline a little disjointed? Do you want to drive additional sales? Do you want to keep that organized? Do you want to provide more proactive customer service? Is something lacking? Are SLAs not being met? Are communications being dropped? Do you have a lean team? We're all resource constrained at some point. So, are there gaps in or maybe a short head count in how you're operating week to week? You don't really have room for support staff, so you don't have many hands or eyes that are available to manage a system. I talked about communication. So is it a spaghetti at the wall approach? Is it something that you hope sticks? You don't really have centralized or managed? All these different questions, all these different variables, they all come to looking inward and being honest. So where are you right now? Really just level setting with your team, and once you understand, here where some of those deltas and gaps are, realizing those gaps and drawing that line to where you want to be. So bulleting out, these are the steps that we can take. And the nice thing is that when we're looking at Dynamics 365 for customer engagement, when we're looking at CRM systems, we have the ability to consolidate these things. We have the ability to manage these processes, manage this data in a robust fashion, or very straightforward. It all depends on those variables. So Dynamics 365 for customer engagement, out of the box, we're looking at customer management as number one, really. So managing those relationships in those organizations, the organizations and the people, the accounts, the contacts. On top of that, we can look at activity management. So are we calling people on a regular basis? What sort of email communication do we have? Really garnering that 360-degree view of those people and places you work or organizations you work with. We have sales pipelines and forecasting. So out of the box, Dynamics 365 for customer engagement affords that lead to opportunity process. So those touch points, those business cards, those flashes in the sales pan, so to speak, that we can capture and we can nurture and we can manage and we can build and develop into these potential opportunities, and be able to see that top down, see that journey, see that path. And Dynamics 365 also provides a tie-in to the broader Office spectrum. So we're looking at integrations with Outlook. We're looking at integrations with OneNote, Excel. The one-stop shop, so to speak, for anything Office 365. And to top it off here, mobile capabilities. So, we're looking at, I mean, everybody is mobile first in a very increasing fashion. So, is this going to make sense for our outbound sales team? Is this going to make sense for the people in the field? So, this is just a quick snapshot, and I mentioned that office accessibility. So, just a visual on, hey, if I'm in Dynamics 365, I'm on a dashboard, I'm on a customer record, I'm somewhere in the system. 2 clicks, and I'm gonna shoot over to SharePoint. 2 clicks, I'm gonna shoot over to Flow and build some automation for myself. 2 clicks, and I'm gonna go to Word or Excel or PowerPoint, some of those more traditional Office applications and tools. On top of the pipeline management, and we just skimmed on the service and marketing as core concepts, but some of the specialized functionality that Dynamics 365 provides, there are things outside of customer engagement that are field service automation. So looking at managing service contracts, mobility, people out in the field, assets, equipment, everything that plays into being a field service organization, or having that field service presence with either sales, customer service, maintenance individuals as a role. There is project service automation, so managing pipelines, project pipelines, resources, allocations, hours realized, billing, expenses. There is a swath of project-based entities and records that we can work with to manage our project pipelines, manage project success, and make sure that we have that top-down understanding on who's a part of which projects that we have going on. And recently, we've introduced Dynamics 365 for marketing. So there are core marketing bits within customer engagement. And now we have this more robust suite to manage those customer journeys, to define very pointed engagement points, whether those are web forms or survey. There are a lot of tools that we have in that toolbox that are above and beyond what has historically been a pretty simplistic take on marketing capabilities within Dynamics 365. Advanced lead scoring is going to come into the play as well. To round this one out here, we have social engagement. So that's been there for a while. Social engagement, being able to plug into your social channels, bring in data, bring in those posts, and be able to analyze that, slice it and dice it. Some great analytics, some great insights on your social presence, and the ability to not only analyze, consume, and report on, but engage. So the ability to go out and engage with customers, go engage via social channels and integrating with those Facebooks, Instagrams, Twitters, etc. Integrated applications, so we do have document management capabilities, so being able to in compliant ways, SharePoint being a very compliant platform, so auto generate folder locations, develop those hierarchies, some customization configuration options. We do have a LinkedIn integration, so if you're using LinkedIn Sales Navigator, being able to kind of flex those kind of social channel muscles, but in a very professional and business-centric way. So being able to go to that LinkedIn network, being able to engage any prospects or score any prospects, really tie the two platforms together, tie LinkedIn and Dynamics 365 together, and being able to have advanced activity tracking capabilities from there too. Customer insights, so AI is an ever increasing part of the conversation. AI-driven analytics, what can we predict? How can we be proactive? And how can we leverage machine learning to be able to drive us or steer us in the right direction? Adobe Sign, we've been waiting for that for quite some time, the ability to distribute documentation, get those signatures, get them into the system, make sure that we have everything set and square, and gamification. So any fantasy football lovers, fantasy sports, it's kind of a fantasy-like user adoption tool that we have within the system. So that was a very, very quick synopsis of the different capabilities that we have with Dynamics 365. So, when we're talking about customer engagement, when we're talking about traditional CRM, what does that mean for your team? Again, going back to looking inward, understanding the resources that you have and understanding where you want to go.
Adam, we had one quick question on the information you just covered.
Yeah.
Are these specialized functionality available out of the box?
Some of them are, some of them aren't. A lot of, when we're looking at field service or, Dynamics 365 for marketing has its own specialized pricing structure. So there are these different kind of modular additions that we can look to bring into our core. Things like document management, like we just saw with SharePoint right there, customer insights. There are pieces of what we just covered that are available when you stand Dynamics 365 up. There will be some licensing considerations. You know, there might be different tier breaks depending on what you want to bring into that initial stand up. But some of these are, some of these are not. I'm absolutely willing to give a breakdown of, walk through and kind of highlight, yeah, this is going to come if you just give standard, standard plug and play Dynamics 365. So we can follow up with that if you'd like to give that good breakdown. A lot of it comes back to licensing and what tier you're going to jump in at. Any other questions right now? Perfect. Okay. So, that was a broad base. It was a top-down look at Dynamics 365. Some of the capabilities, some of the concepts, some of the questions. Where are we? Where do we want to go? And then some of those pillars of functionality that exist within the system, and some of those that might be a little adjacent or surrounding the core customer engagement piece. But when we're talking about strategies and how we can maximize Dynamics 365 for customer engagement. That engagement piece is a big piece. That's the key term here. So, what are those tactics? What are those tools? What are those applications that we can use for that engagement within Dynamics 365? So, when we're as a business leader, as a manager, as a decision maker, we want our actions and we want our decisions to be predicated on data. We want to be making data-driven decisions. And strategic decisions, being empowered to be proactive and making smarter decisions based on what we've seen or based on what we can glean, based on what we have. So how do we obtain those insights? That bold engagement right there, I emphasize that because it's not just a customer concept. It's not just how can we garner more touch points with our customers? How can we get a broader net cast? How can we get more eyes on our information, our products, and engage our sales team? It's also looking inward. It's understanding how we can engage our users. When we jump into projects, a lot of the times it's to bolster sales, it's to bolster service, it's to bolster marketing, it's to flex those muscles, it's to round out the capabilities that are already there in a strategic fashion. But there are projects where we're looking at user adoption, we're looking at change management, we're looking at how we can, as an organization, how you can, as an organization, maximize those efficiencies. If we've built them out, let's use them. Or if we've built them out and they need to be refined, let's go refine them. So, that inward gaze, that inward analysis is sometimes just as important as looking at how we can reach more customers and how we can cast that wider net. So it's not just a purely customer-based concept. User adoption system use and being able to sharpen, being able to, just even develop some of those tactics and strategies for our own teams to give or provide that more immersive Dynamics 365 user experience. So there are two sides to this coin. Obviously, we want to be focused on more business, more that wider net, getting more touch points, being more proactive with our customers. But I do want to focus on the internal as well. I think that's very, very important. So. If you don't have the right hands and eyes steering the ship and getting that data for you or managing that data or those processes for you, when we're talking about data-driven decisions, that's not a healthy way to be moving forward. So. some of those internal tools. So when we're talking about tool sets, we're talking about a toolbox, those things that we can use, to glean these insights. Point number one, manual system use. So getting some of those telemetry insights. How are people using the system? Are they using the system? Are they logging in? What are they doing? Which records are they working with? So nothing too big brothery, but at a very, very high level, are people using the system the way that we intended? Are they actually getting in there and doing the work? So there are cool. There's a really cool tool called Organization Insights. So we can track those logins on a daily basis, or slice and dice different time frames. We can look at the execution of automation and workflows in the system. So when maybe we have a process developed where workflows trigger off and or they fire off, they're triggered and they're sending out email communication, or they're executing record updates. So we can get a top-down understanding of how active the system is, so to speak, and then looking at those top tables, that index, and being able to monitor our storage and everything. So Organization Insights, it's being developed even further. It's a great tool to be able to monitor how people might be using your system from your teams, at that internal level. I already mentioned gamification, so it's that fantasy sports type of setup. So being able to score different actions, being able to set up leaderboards, being able to give weekly, quarterly, annual, trophies, and I've set it up in the past, and it's been pretty wildly successful. I will say that the wildly successful part was between the cones of a sales team. So it was working with an already pretty competitive bunch. But the way that we really drove the success there is being able to incentivize those results. So when we're looking at engagement and activity management and tracking and everything, I mean, being able to say, we're getting bonuses driven off of this, or because we have a process in place, we're going to score different actions. We're going to really drive you to go down this path. It was great. It was great to see. So being able to track that, it's all fun and games on the front end, or it can be a pretty lighthearted approach to that user adoption and system use. But on the back end, we can look at those key metrics. We can see, how many people are being active in there. Look at the data quality. Look at what's coming into the system. And that last point, looking at that data quality, this is something I just threw out there. Just being able to look at what our users are putting into the system, gauge the effectiveness, and making sure that we're keeping the standard and everything. So being able to take that and engaging our internal users on best practice. So again, data-driven decision making, data-driven actions. Looking at the data in the system, looking at what's being put in, and maybe being either proactive or reactive in how we engage our end users in the system on taking it up a notch or adhering to standards in a more proactive way. And automation, this will come with external too, but the system is very powerful when it comes to automation. So automating any sales pipeline, like I said, updating records or automatic communication. So taking these things that traditionally might be a manual process and automating them via workflow, with a number of other tools that we have in the system to streamline any individual or team work streams and provide those efficiencies. So in terms of external, with our customers, number one, I put mobility right at the top. So like I said, mobile first, that's entering the fold at an ever increasing rate. So how can we empower our outbound sales teams? How can we empower the people that might be on the fly, on the go, really just maybe prefer the mobile clients, the tablet experience. They never carry a laptop machine with them or never have a desktop computer. So that mobile tailoring that mobile experience for the teams, and being able to empowering those sales teams, your sales teams, when they're on the fly, they're with customers, they're on site, they're on a support call, they're on a sales call, they're with your customers face to face. How can we get those? How can we get updates? How can we get notes? How can we get activities and track that? As people are in the field and interacting with their customers directly, how can we bring that in real time? And tailoring a mobile experience is one of those tactics. So second here is the Outlook application. So another engagement tool that we have in our toolbox is the ability to tie Dynamics 365 for customer engagement in with Outlook. And when I say Outlook, I mean every iteration of Outlook. So we're looking at the the desktop, the web, or the mobile client, and it's going to be a unified experience on that front. So being able to go look at an email from Jane Smith and track that to Jane Smith's record on a continual basis, and from different clients, whether you're at your PC at your desk, you have your phone, you're on the bus, you want to track that right there and right then, that's going to come back to Jane Smith's record. So empowering that, there's a mobile tie-in here for sure, but when we're using other Office applications, I mean, I live in Outlook, I don't know about you, but being able to track these email threads and being able to track these touch points and activities from Outlook into Dynamics 365 is really powerful. Portals, in the last couple of years, ADX Portals has come into the fold of Dynamics 365, now known as Dynamics 365 Portals or Portal Capabilities. So being able to take the data that we have as an organization, we have our CRM data, we have our Dynamics 365 data, and expose that to our customer base. Being able to update or insert or manage the data externally. That's a really powerful concept. That's a really powerful thing. So the different flavors we have, partner portals. So if you're working with maybe a rep network, as sort of an intermediary between you and your end customers, being able to prop up those partner portals. Knowledge base, so if it's more service oriented, being able to expose not only entering new cases or incidents for any variety, product, service, you name it, but also being able to search through knowledge base. That's a really powerful thing. Being able to engage externally with customers via a real-time, via real-time portal accessibility. And then there are things like forums, service-based portal configurations, and then I have seen internally facing portals as well. So maybe a large organization looking at a knowledge-based solution that people can access anywhere, not just a core user base for Dynamics 365, but the broader organization that might not have certain licenses, or there are different considerations there, but a purely internally facing portal as well. Surveys are another tactic for getting that real-time customer, the customer satisfaction, the customer insights, keeping the finger on the pulse of all of our customers. A lot of it is going to be service-oriented. So how are we doing? Rate your experience, things like that. But it's all very valuable, and it comes into the system real-time as it's filled out. Much the same with web forms. So data coming directly in, kind of like portals. I mean, people are interacting with a web form, they are entering that data, and it's going right into your system. So all of these, all of the bullets that we see here, all the concepts that we see here are ways, are tools, are applications, are bits of the system that we can use to engage with our customers, to enhance that or maximize that ability to get multi-channel customer touch points, whether that's talking about in person, using the mobile app when we're in person with customers, or that's setting up a portal for internal teams to use. There are a number of ways that we can use these different tools to engage with our customers and get those engagement points in place. And the last bit, of course, automation. So being able to automate communication, being able to automate process, being able to automate, any piece or any process bit along the way. Very powerful engine that we have. We can lean on and guide you along and make that journey better. So the next bigger chunk here, implementations. What works for you? There are a number of options that we have. Every project is a different flavor. Every time that we're engaging with our customers, there are different industries, there are different team compositions, there are different resources, there are different timelines, there are different budgets, there are so many variables that are in that implementation equation. So, what works for you? And I kind of broke things out into 3 primary buckets, and then we'll talk about a couple of adoption and change management concepts. But in understanding hey, what is going to be our best take? What's going to be our best foot forward? Things to consider, so what are your team and partner resources? Do you have a partner? I mentioned earlier on in the presentation, is it a lean team? Do we have only a couple of people that can really dive in and manage this? Do you have technical chops? There are so many different things you can ask, but understanding how you can shore up a team, how you can form a team to either freshly implement Dynamics 365 or enhance kind of a phase 2, phase 3 additional features and functionality. Who's going to own that? Budgets and timelines. I don't want to break it down just to dollars and cents and that bottom line, but that really is a primary driver for a lot of teams. So is there something you have allocated? Are there timelines in place? Does it need to be fast? Can we take it a little bit more iteratively, maybe space it out, be a little bit more sound in some of the development, really make sure we're crossing those T's. What is that customer impact? Do we run the risk of really kind of flipping the world on its head for our customers? Is there going to be that disruption? What kind of change? What does that change look like? If there is it minimal? Is it pretty broad-based? Is this a completely new paradigm? So really keeping on top of how that might impact your end customers, or like I mentioned, like a rep network, if you're working with any intermediaries. And when we're thinking about all these factors, I like to bucket things, and this is, I'll say this is not Stoneridge branded, but I like to think about things in a sprint, stride, step fashion. So are we ready to sprint? Is this something that we should do? We want to get it, we want to get that system implemented. We want to get that stood up in a really short timeline, and really lean on out of the box functionality. Do we want to maybe stride out a little bit more? Do we want to invest a little bit more? Do we have some requirements driven pieces of how we need our system built? Or do we want to take things more iteratively, or whatever sort of methodology you have? But, is this a bigger project? Are there more considerations? Do we have more that we need? Is it maybe sort of XRM implementation where we have a lot of customization, custom record types, and all these very, very tailored pieces of the system? So like I said, sprint, you're going to get it right. We need to get it going right away. Stride is that it's a quicker turnaround, but it's not going to draw out, ideally, more customization, a little bit more tailoring. And then there's that step. So longer timelines, a lot more variables, very, very requirements driven, engaging a lot of teams, heavier customization, more advanced implementation, if you will. So when we're talking about sprint, I'll give a plug right here. Quick Start. Stoneridge Software offers our Quick Start implementation methodology. So I think it's within a 3 to 6 week window, looking at really out of the box processes. So not a whole lot of not any process analysis, or not a whole lot of process analysis. Kind of trimming traditional implementation methods up to get a pretty core base in place for you for Dynamics 365. So you're looking at standing it up and really simple configuration. We do offer that. It's a cheaper model. So really, when we're talking about pretty lean budgets, maybe lean teams, Quick Start is an awesome option for the customers that we work with, and it's been successful. So this sprint is really looking at the out of the box sales pipeline management, so that lead to opportunity process we've already talked about, looking at what's out of the box with service management, and that can get pretty complex. So we try to keep it as straightforward as possible, not any complex routing or queue management or advanced SLAs and entitlements, things like that, but really keeping things pretty straightforward with case management. And then there's, the simple marketing. So we have this big suite that's been rolled out recently, Dynamics 365 for marketing, but we also have core marketing capabilities. So automated messaging, email marketing list management, campaign management. So that does live within customer engagement. And when I think about a sprint implementation, when I think about something that's fast, something along the quick start line, this is like immediate use. This is, we want to get Office going, we want to get our licenses in place, we want to get the out of the box system there and get our users in, and we're looking at something like maybe a month. I mean, maybe 2 if it draws out. But like I said, Quick Start is going 3 to 6 weeks. Really looking for that fast turnaround, out of the box processes, out of the box configuration, and adhering to what's offered on that level. Now, when I'm thinking about stride implementations, I'm thinking about something that's 3 to 6 months, something that's that's more immersive. We will have process considerations. We're going to stand up Dynamics 365. We're going to get that environment ready to go and ready to customize, but there'll be more customization. There's going to be more tailoring. There's going to be more, with respect to process automation, potential data management or movement, and then maybe some more workflow-based automation, things of that nature. So it's just more immersive. It's a more immersive project. So there's more stakeholder engagement. We're going to define what we need to build through those stakeholders and through the people who are making those decisions, or maybe the users, but it's going to be very straightforward. And, it is going to be requirements driven. So it's not so much leaning on pure out of the box functionality where, it's moving to that next level and really developing the system based on business processes or data, or, you name it, with those variables. So, just looking back, understanding what kind of project do we need to get in place to maximize the system? Is it a stride implementation? Is it something that is a little bit more immersive? And then the final piece of this is, hey, is this thing big? Does our team need something that is more of that step? Is more of that 6+ months, 6 months to a year? We have a lot of moving parts, a lot of stakeholders, a lot of voices, process owners, managers, users that are going to be feeding into how we're building the system out. So standing up the system and then giving that robust development, or you have your existing system right now and we really need to dive into the thick of it to build out complex automation, to build out customization, so the platform extension, so custom code, or getting into the XRM component of things, so custom entities and building things that aren't found out of the box just for your business. And then at another level, all the different system integrations that we can provide. So looking at AX, or the finance and operations online, Business Central, GP, so all the Dynamics suites, the Dynamics applications that we have, the different team expertise that we have, maybe looking at different marketing suites, maybe looking at something like a Marketo or a Click Dimensions, or something that we can tie in, or legacy systems. That's a common ask, and all of this really plays into something that's going to take more time. It's going to take more effort. It's going to take more budget. It's going to take a lot more, is the bottom line. So, and then I just put it, continuous improvement. This is something that is going to evolve. So, whether we're going to sprint, whether we're going to stride, or whether we're going to step, depending on the scope and the variables in play, this is kind of what you can expect and what's right for your team. How can you maximize that system? How can you take what you have already or jump fresh into Dynamics 365 to really get it to that next level? So understanding what's right for the team is going to be critical. And user adoption and change, this is something that I'm pretty passionate about myself. So, when we make those decisions, when we say, yes, we want to maximize the system, yes, we want to take it to the next level, we want to build out automation, we want to tie in to marketing, we want to have a 360-degree view of our customers between our sales and marketing and service teams. There might be change. We might be changing things drastically. We might be jumping into Dynamics 365 fresh, new. We've never experienced it before. Your teams have never experienced it before. So, what sort of barriers are we going to face? What can our users expect when we go live, or then we get them into the system for testing, or any of these other things? So I just put some keys for user adoption. Identifying the barriers is going to be critical as a first step, but getting those regular touch points. So not just saying, hey guys, we're going to do this, but also saying, hey guys, we're going to do this, but we're going to bring you, we're really inclusive here. We're going to bring you along the way. I've been a part of projects where users aren't engaged at all. It's just process owners, managers, people who might be a little bit more detached from that implementation, or from the day-to-day, the week-to-week, the actual raw business process. So being able to have those touch points with those users, engage them, empower them. That's going to be critical to user adoption. And then the shadowing. As a consultant myself, being able to shadow how somebody does something day to day is awesome. That's really cool to see. This is how it moves from A to B to C to D, and I can take that and I can build that. I can mirror that, or aid that, or assist that, or optimize that with technology. But being able to listen to those user stories is really critical. You know, and I mentioned empowerment. So, you know, giving those stories of how this is going to enable or empower those users is critical for user adoption too, just so they can understand, you know, those efficiencies, understand why this is the right decision or that data-driven decision to tie that in. And then change management, it's you might need internal change management is key. You might need external change, some change communication as well. So to customers, how is this going to benefit? You know, if you want that touch point, if you want that engagement with your customers, if it's imperative or critical that they know that this sort of change might be coming with systems, you know, we're talking about maybe portals. Does that change how they go and enter data or work with sales pipeline or anything like that? So having that communication or understanding what that communication cadence or content might look like is going to be pretty critical. I bolded a couple of words here. So understanding not just what's changing. Hey guys, we're going to Dynamics 365. Hey guys, you know, this is going to be our new pipeline. This is going to be our new process. But giving substance to how is it going to change? Where are those efficiencies gained? How are we going to realize those? And then why? You know, this is what's changed, but this is what you're going to see. This is going to be future state, and this is why we made this decision. So, you know, being able to be more efficient in our lead to opportunity process, being able to log in a couple of clicks, be able to see ABC Co's activities, all their contacts, all of the touch points, the owners, you know, you name it. But having that communication and understanding that you probably should be communicating the what, how, and why, not just the what, is going to be important. And just being proactive, you know, not waiting until a go live saying, hey, it's here, it's ready, but along the way, maybe guiding and giving those journey updates. Here's what we've seen, here's where we are, and here's where we're going. Not just for a go live, but, you know, maybe different milestones along the way. Maybe there are compartmentalized pieces of the project that, you know, we can display and we can cheer on and we can be proud of and communicate those out. You know. And I isolated this one specifically because positivity is so crucial to user adoption and change management. So people have the known, people have what they're familiar with. They know they need to enter data into an Excel book. They know that they need to take that and maybe they have a macro to do whatever with that data. They know that they need to create a pivot chart. They know that they need to maybe take that and print it out, or, you know, something along the, you know, this disjointed process with some archaic bits here and there. So the known is the familiar, is the comfortable. So those are those familiar efficiencies. But while we are going to be losing the known and losing those familiar efficiencies, there are going to be so many efficiencies gained. And having that as a communication point very proactively and very regularly is going to instill that positivity, is going to instill that confidence, and you know, is going to let your users you know that, hey, this is for the better. This is an improvement. This is something that we're taking very seriously. And, you know, as we do maximize the system, as we do move forward, you know, these are the important points. And to round things out for the day, just a couple of business cases, you know, so a couple of projects that I've been a part of, and just highlighting some of the, you know, some of the inputs, highlighting some of the outputs and how they tie back to some of these points that we've talked about, some of the tools that we've talked about for engagement, some of the concepts we've talked about with respect to user adoption and change management and whatnot. So just wanted to get a little anecdotal, and please, by all means, if there are any questions, you know, I would be happy to jump in as we're going forward and you know, maybe discuss some of the variables in play. But the first case titled There But Not There. So worked with an industrial cleaning equipment organization locally here, and they did have a CRM system. They did have Dynamics 365 in place. But all they were really doing was taking account and contact data from Nav. So they worked with Navision or Dynamics Nav as well for all their order processing and a lot of their sales data. We're taking account and contact information and just dumping it into the system. They're just importing account and contact data, and it wasn't clean, and it really Dynamics 365 for customer engagement was acting as a pretty substandard digital Rolodex for them, and they weren't using it, they weren't leveraging it. So, over time they did develop that urge, that need, that spark to own the system, use the system, and get out of it, what they thought they were going to get out of it, and get out of it that just maximize what they have, take what they have and really take it to the next level. But they didn't have the internal resources to do that, so they worked with a partner. So they worked with Stoneridge, and they not only wanted to work with the data that they had, but develop a strategy with how their sales teams could, or their sales, the people on the sales team could use this system effectively. It was a pretty old school sales team that didn't want to have a ton of touch points with it. They didn't want to log in on a PC. So based on all of these the needs, and knowing the team composition and being prepared and being equipped with all that information, we cut it into 2 phases to really drive for success. So phase 1, hey, we got to take care of that data. We got to make sure that that data is clean, that we communicate data standards, that people are following those data input standards. And beyond that, we need to take the data once clean and structure those accounts and contacts. So who works for these organizations? When we're talking about 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 contacts working for one of our end customer businesses, we need to be able to tie those together. It's a relational database. So let's get that 3-dimensional view. Let's get that 360-degree view of our customers. And that was a manual effort, but it was an effective one. So once we had that foundation, it really came down to data. Once we had that foundation in place, we needed to talk to the sales team, communicate with the sales team on what their needs are. So that's all well and good that we have this clean, structured, organized data in the system. Well, how does that empower me? How does that enable me when I'm looking to engage with our customers or my customers and report on things? So, not only telling that story to them, but then saying, hey, do you care about mobility? Do you care about activity tracking and some of those core concepts in Dynamics 365? And from all that input, we determine that path forward. So what are we going to build out? What is appropriate to build out, given some of our resource constraints? And once we had that in place, it really set the stage for a nav integration. So they had nav in place for quite some time. So, how can we keep that customer data clean, but also be pulling that customer data up to Dynamics 365 on a regular basis once sales are made. So, so that was what we put in for phase 1 here. But for phase 2, we configured some. I mean, it was pretty standard, pretty out of the box activity tracking and management. But this played into sales KPIs. This played into reporting, that 360-degree perspective. On top of that, we have managerial or role-based dashboards that we put in place. Some more advanced activity-based reporting for the management level, and then they use that for real-time or quarterly sales insights as they were going. After, beyond that activity tracking, we did put a big emphasis on mobility and Outlook, that Outlook integration for tracking. So tracking communication, tracking activities. So they have a couple of inroads, a couple of different entry points for all that activity. So whether that's emails, tasks, phone calls, how can we optimize that tracking, that traceability, and that tracking? So we optimized where we could on form design and trying to get, and this was back before the mobile app was where it's at now. So, we've come a long way, but that mobile first mentality of these guys are out in the field, they're outbound, they're with their customers face to face, they need to pull up their phone and access the system very quickly. How can we optimize that experience? So, we prioritize that user experience as a mobile experience for that sales team and really drove that adoption that way. They did tie in commissions to activities too, so that was a big boost for us. But you develop things the appropriate way for what the user base needs, and you're going to see good results. So, and then we did introduce in phase 2 here that partial integration. So pushing that customer data up from Nav to CRM. So we have continually refreshed data, new data. And this applies to not just Nav, but GP, this applies to Business Central. If we have these integration paths, we have these things defined and what we need to bring into the system, it can really empower our user base. and it was successful in this anecdote. So on top of that, we did build a sales app, so specifically a sales app, and then specifically a separate marketing application. So just optimizing where in the system you need to be, see what you need to see what you need to use, but not restrictive and not limiting at all. Just really guiding that entry point, guiding that user experience, and making sure that everybody had what they needed at their fingertips without a lot of clutter or a lot of noise outside of that. And we did stand up social engagement as well. So we had a lot of marketing data coming in, social data coming in, and web forms for that real-time data entry into the system, and that played into reporting as well. So the big takeaways here, we did build out that easy-to-use mobile-first system, and as a strategy, it was mobile as a strategy. Really, I'll throw it out there, because that sales team was probably not going to adopt otherwise, and the use took off. The system use took off. It was fantastic to see. So that ties back to the tools. Data coming in. I mentioned social engagement and web forms. And I can throw the integration in there as well. So we have a lot of data coming into the system from discrete points, from these different entry points, and that was cool to see flow in. We started easy, so we just started with activity tracking, defining how we want to, where are those limits, what are the expectations, and that clean data as measures of success for that user adoption. So we started very straightforward and very easy for that sales team, and we built from there. So the use flowed forward effectively. It picked up, it ticked up when it needed to, based on how their system use looked, and then we had that integration. The second, I know we're kind of running short on time here, so second use case here, the business case, is at your service. We had a smaller team spread across the upper Midwest here, so Minnesota, Wisconsin. They had a lot of process issues. So because they had the geographically disjointed teams, but also process disjointed teams, we needed to bring everything together. We needed to unify that vision. So talk to these smaller teams, say, hey, what are you doing day to day and week to week? We have these KPIs that are shared. We have these metrics that are shared between your teams, but we need to bring all that together and make sure everybody's on the same page. So they're moving from a different system, so this was a fresh implementation, and it definitely was a sprint. This was a sprint. This was 1 month, 2 month turnaround, and away we go. And they had high volume, so we had a small margin for error in how we needed to execute this. But here's what we did: we knew it was a sprint, so we knew that we needed to go live. We knew that we needed, because of the cutover from their legacy system, we knew that we needed to get this in place very quickly. A lot of business process analysis at the get-go. So that instead of going and configuring entities, we went in and said, what do you do? And talked with the end users and really mapped that out to prop up and stand up and highlight that unified vision, after all was said and done. So just to throw it out there, we do that too. We're not just technology experts, but I mean, we are really jumping in and learning about your process, learning about how your teams communicate and how your data moves and what you do day to day, week to week. So where are those gaps? How can these disparate teams communicate in real time? The emphasis on the status and the stages and proper automation and segmentation, you name it. And then, we did drive our design off of that process, considering it was service-based. They had a document management component to this too. So looking back at our tools, maximizing what's out of the box here, being able to, in a compliant fashion, store these documents and use the system as a repository for these pretty sensitive documents. So the key takeaways in this, we kind of put a fairly robust implementation into 1 to 2 months. We unified that process. We provided that process that process analysis and user engagement. Those user adoption, kind of that, thinking about that proactively along the way, and the document management. So it was really successful, and after all was said and done, in a pretty short timeline, we had something pretty awesome.